Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to Lund University here in Lund, Sweden. We are live here on YouTube today, and we are going to talk to you about preparing to apply. If you're interested in studying with us here at Lund University, we're going to make sure that you feel ready and prepared for that. My name is Maria Lindblad, and I work here at Lund University in the Global Student Recruitment office, and this is my colleague Rebecca.
Hello everybody, I'm Rebecca. I also work in the Global Student Recruitment team, mainly with recruitment, mostly from UK and India, but today I'm here to help with any of your questions regardless of where you're from. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we're very excited to be here with you today, and we're very curious where you're joining us from. So it would be great if you want to tell us in the chat here where you're joining us from. It's always good to know who we're speaking to. I also want to say that we will be taking as many of your questions as we can that are all about preparing to apply and preparing for your future studies. But if we don't get to all your questions, don't worry. In the description of the video and the live here below, you will find a link to a form where you can send your questions, and we will get to them via email later. So no worries. Or if you are seeing this as a video after the live, you will also be able to use that link, of course, to send us any questions. But let's see, Becca, who is joining us? We're going to be looking down into the chat here.
So many countries, yeah, various different places. I see Greece, Spain, Ethiopia, Kenya. So we've got, USA. I wonder what the time difference is.
Yeah, well, it is 4 o'clock here in Sweden, so it's pretty late in the afternoon. Yeah. They should be awake by now, I would say. Yeah.
So a lot of different places. That's really great.
A warm welcome again to all of you joining us. It's really a mix from all over the world, so it's exciting to see. Here we have Croatia, Turkey, India, Italy, Spain,
Brazil,
Ethiopia, Nigeria, Poland, US. That's
Zimbabwe.
really great. Well, so Becca, today's topic is preparing to apply to degree studies at Lund University and in Sweden, because you are all over the world, and maybe you're not familiar with applying to Sweden. And so what do you think, Becca, being a recruitment manager and being in contact with so many students from around the world, what is kind of the first thing that one should do if you're vaguely thinking about maybe going to Europe, maybe go to Sweden?
Yeah, exactly.
Where do you start?
Well, I think we usually tell students that you should always start with the program. You should always think first about what you want to study. And obviously the best place to go for that information is our website. So hopefully you've all found the website by now, but feel free to go to our main website. And there you can find our whole catalogue of programs, as well as all of the information that you could ever want about those programs. So what kinds of, content they include, what the eligibility requirements are, how much they cost, everything really that you would want to know about a program is all on those program web pages.
Yeah, and we'll dig into that more during this hour
exactly.
as well.
And while you're there, you can also obviously find out more generally about Lund University and just find out whether it's right for you. And part of that is the program right for you, something that you're interested in, and also hopefully eligible for as well. So that's probably the best place to start, because you need to find that program first before you take the next steps, I would say.
What if you don't really know, or you're unsure? I mean, both about the university to choose, but also about the program to choose. It is difficult to know. There are 20,000 odd internationally recognized universities in the world, and where do you start? So do you have any tips if people are just kind of like, I don't know, I don't know if it's right for me? Where do you go and find out?
I guess it does depend quite a lot on the individual as to what's most important for them, I guess I would say. So, but something that most of you are probably thinking about is the reputation of the university. So we have a page all about that. You can find out a little bit more about our rankings, for example. We're very proud of those, so we like to highlight them. But also, you'll see beautiful pictures of the campus, and maybe that's interesting to you in terms of where you're going to study, what it's going to be like there, whether you can see yourself on our campus. And then when it comes to obviously you should do your research between the different institutions and the different programs. And I don't know if you agree, but I think that for a lot of students, one of the things that stands out to them is our range of programs. It's the fact that we have so many different kinds of subject areas. Obviously, we're a comprehensive university, so we have many different faculties and many different subject areas that you can explore.
Yeah.
So you can start there, and then you can kind of narrow down further and have a look and see what is important to me, what kinds of topics am I really interested in. And then you can really deep dive, because those pages have a lot of links and information. You can find out what researchers are working in this program, what kind of areas of research are they specializing in, do they have links to local industry, and really explore. And I think those things often help. Maybe see some testimonials of previous students, and there's loads of information.
There are lots of places to do your research, and one thing that I was thinking about while you were speaking, Becca, was also the fact that we have so many different programs, and we have a lot of interdisciplinary programs here at Lund, because we are a very old university from 1666. We are in quite a small university town, but the university is huge, actually. We have 47,000 students and about 8,600 staff members, and being such a large group of people in a historic town in quite a small space and interacting a lot with each other across boundaries and borders of different sorts, it has led to a lot of interdisciplinary collaboration and research, which also then has led to programs. So researchers that have been working together, maybe they sit down and work on a research project, and then maybe we should start a master's program together and really dig into this and take students along with us on that journey. And so what I'm getting at here is that maybe you haven't thought about this particular program before. Maybe you don't recognize the name. If you're searching on Google or through ChatGPT or something, and you're like, I want to study this particular. Actually, maybe it's not called that here. Or maybe there's another program with a slightly different nuance. And so I just think that try to be like open-minded in that research, and maybe even scroll. We have a list on our website with all the programs A to Z, so you can actually just go through the whole list if you want and have a look, like what do you actually offer that I haven't even considered. And we also have it divided by subject area, so you can also, maybe you're like, I want something in business, but I'm not sure what, or something in environment, and then you can just see, what do we have? Yeah,
it's a really fun experience, in my opinion, to just like have a look. I just wanted to highlight this really nice comment here from a student who said, hey, I watched you before applying to Lund last year, and I'm in the university now, so I'm just here to say thank you guys. That's so lovely. Thank you very much for your lovely comment there.
Yeah, it's great to see some current students joining us
really nice
as well.
I also noticed there was a couple of questions in here that maybe we could talk about, because they're quite common queries. So one of them was actually about the dates for applying and when we're opening for applications, and also what dates programs start, because somebody was asking about a January program. So I think we can quickly clarify the application dates.
Absolutely.
Do you want to?
No, go ahead.
Sorry, you were just scrolling. That's fine. That's always a little bit tricky with the questions and also talking at the same time to you guys.
Exactly.
Basically we open in mid-October. We say mid-October because sometimes it's 15th, some programs open for applications on the 16th. So just check back a couple of days in the middle of October. And then the main application period for all of our international masters runs from mid-October to mid-January. And there's something that's a bit interesting about the Swedish system, which is that we tend to have two deadlines at the end of the application period. So the first deadline is your deadline to actually select a program and apply, which is usually around 15th of Jan. And then the next deadline is usually around the first, is it the third this year of Feb?
This might be the second,
okay.
Actually, depending on the weekend.
So it's going to be around the 2nd of February, and that deadline is the deadline to submit all your supporting documentation, which we'll also talk about a little bit later. So that's one thing to know, and that is the application period for programs which start in autumn 2026.
Exactly. And while you've been talking here, that was good. That gave me a chance to scroll through the questions a little bit, and I see that there were some questions about about, how do I know what to submit, and can you help me, and so on. And I just want to say that the next application round with the dates that Rebecca just mentioned hasn't been published yet. So you can find a lot of information on our website already, but it's sort of from the previous round. So the new application round will open, as Rebecca already said it, by mid-October. So that is when you should check back to see all the updated information, because there will be some new programs that maybe weren't there from last year. And also that's when the programs will be updating all their application documents to let you know this is the template for the new statement of purpose or the CV that you need to submit or whatever it may be. So on our program web pages, you will find the full description of the program, the entry requirements and everything. And then there's also a how to apply section. And there you will find if there's anything in particular you need to submit other than your transcripts and English tests, for example. There might be, as mentioned, statement of purpose, CV, recommendation letters, but that information is not currently updated for the next round. So please check back once we have opened to make sure that you're filling out the right forms and doing it correctly.
And also maybe important to say that those documents vary by program also, because somebody asked about a letter of recommendation here, which is a term often used quite interchangeably with statement of purpose, for example. And not every program requires one of those. No. So you have to go to the program page to find out whether your particular program that you're interested in requires that letter, essentially. And they will give you a lot of guidance usually on the page about what template or what format you should use, whether that's part of a bigger form, for example, or whether you should submit it separately. So please carefully read the instructions there is what I would suggest.
For sure. We actually have a question here about starting in January 2026, but that application round was already in summer, so that was open from early June until mid-August. So I'm afraid it's already too late, but I can say that we don't really open any of our master's programs at all, or the international bachelors for that matter, for that round. So you didn't really miss any of the big program application dates. It's usually just for shorter courses and for Swedish taught programs in that round. So you didn't miss anything, but the next application round is for autumn 2026, August 2026.
Yeah. Someone here asked, is there a place I can register so that I get emails with this information? Yeah. And you can actually put in a question on our question form, and then you will be registered for our emails. Exactly. That's one way to do it. You don't actually even have to ask a question. You can just go to our form, and you'll find that link in the description to this live. And you can just say, hey, I don't have a question right now, but I want you to send me emails, and we will make sure that you get those. Exactly. And everybody who starts an application will also automatically be getting updates and important notices about deadlines, etc. I want to go back to some of the questions we had. There were basically two groups here. I can sense two major groups. There are some questions about bachelor's applications, so we'll get to that. And there are also some questions about PhDs and whether or not the masters are research focused and how that whole process works. So just to clarify one thing, in Sweden, when you apply to a PhD, it's actually a job position. It's not like applying for a master's, for example. It's not a regular study program as such. It is a 4-year period that you would study, do your research, and also some work, either administrative work or teaching for the department where you are employed. So it's actually a job position. So when you apply to a PhD, you would simply go to our website, find the job positions available, and then you can apply whenever there's a relevant position. Usually students use the path of going through a master's. So they come here, they study a master's, maybe they even extend their degree project a little bit so that they do as much research as possible during their master's. And then if a PhD position opens up, they can more easily transition into that. So that is a good way to sort of make it into a combined
period where you do both your master's and your PhD. And you can actually shorten the time period a little bit if you manage to do it as a package in that way. But that's something that would happen sort of along your study. That's not something you can know for sure when you start the master's. But a lot of students do transition into a PhD from the master's. So that was just a brief overview of that.
Yeah.
Lots of questions coming in, but Becca, we had some questions here regarding bachelor studies and timelines and so on.
Yeah, exactly. I noticed that. I noticed the timeline questions.
Yeah.
And I also noticed timeline questions. A few master's applicants asking whether they can apply when they're in their final year of bachelor's. So I might just quickly answer that as well, because then we can then move to the bachelor's questions. So yes, if you're thinking about applying for a master's and you're in your final year of your bachelor's program, it is possible to apply. So you can actually just submit proof of being a final year student, which is usually there's a template on the university admissions website, or you can get an official letter from your university, signed and stamped, etc., to confirm that you're a final year student. And then it is possible to apply based on your transcript so far and your plan of study for the last semester, basically. So don't worry too much about that. That situation. But then for bachelor students, it's a little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
So we'll try our best to keep
opposite,
it. Yeah, it's the opposite. And we'll try and keep it simple. But basically for bachelor students, unfortunately, you can't apply in your final year of studies because we don't accept predicted or prospective grades from bachelor's applicants. So you have to have already completed your studies by the document deadline. As we already mentioned, the main application period is between October and January. But for bachelors, and not for masters, but only for bachelors, there is also a second application round only for those who don't need a residence permit. So essentially that mostly applies to EU nationals. So if you are an EU national and you are applying for a bachelor's programme, you are allowed to apply in the second round. That would give you a later document deadline. However, that document deadline is still in June for some students and July for some other students. So it's still potentially going to be a problem depending when you when you graduate and when you get your final results. So look into that. If that's something that you're thinking about, if you're an EU student and you would like to apply in that second round, then obviously feel free to find out more about that round on universityadmissions.se, and it's worth considering, but just be aware that you still have to meet that document deadline.
Yeah, and if you're a non-EU student applying to a bachelor program, as Rebecca said, the application period is from mid-October to mid-January with a document deadline in early February, and of course most of you will, if you're still in your upper secondary school or senior year of high school, you will in most cases maybe finish in June, July, which means you cannot meet the deadline, and then you will have to take a gap year and apply again the following year.
Exactly.
Take that time to maybe work or gain other experiences before starting your studies.
Yeah.
I do want to interact with one thing here. While you were speaking, Rebecca, you mentioned university admissions. We haven't actually talked about that.
Yeah.
So maybe we should just clarify what that is.
Yeah. So we mentioned our website, but we didn't mention another very important website, which is universityadmissions.se. And this is the national admissions site for the whole of Sweden. So this is where all of the different Swedish universities place their programs, and you can apply to more than one program. For masters, it's 4 programs. For bachelors, it's 8, although we should clarify it's kind of weird in Sweden because you basically get one first choice and then a bunch of backup options in case you don't get that one. So you can only receive one offer in the end. But that is in the whole country.
So choose carefully.
Yeah, think very hard about where you want your first choice to be, because once you receive a place there, the others are essentially deleted because you already received your first choice offer. So it's a good website to spend some time on.
Yeah.
It has lots of guidance on there. It has guidance about what you need to submit depending where you previously studied. They have all of the dates and deadlines that we just mentioned and talked about. And it's the place where you will actually apply for the program and upload your documents. So familiarise yourself with that website. Feel free to create an account already if you wish to, so that you're ready for when it's time to apply. I think that's mainly what I would say about the university admissions.
Yeah, I'm scrolling the questions here again, and I see there's still a little bit of confusion of
understandable.
sort of the document deadlines and so on.
Yeah.
Totally understandable. So we'll just clarify that one more time. So we're open from mid-October to mid-January. Those are the dates, whether you're applying to an international bachelor's or master's. That's kind of the dates you should be focusing on. And that's when you need to start your application. You need to apply online, submit the right program that you want to choose, that you want to apply to. And then you have a few more days up until 1st or 2nd of February, we're not quite sure of the date, to submit all your documents. If you are in the final year of your bachelor, so you haven't finished your bachelor's by the 2nd of February or 1st of February, then that's okay, in 99.9% of the cases at least. You can simply submit the transcripts that you have so far and a document clarifying that you are in the final semester. And there are instructions on the website for that particular document and what that must look like. However, if you're applying to a bachelor's and you're in upper secondary school, that whole process does not work. You actually must have your final document by the document deadline. So slightly different process there, but you can apply if you're applying to a master's, and even if you haven't finished, as long as you will finish before the program starts. And the program will start in late August, early September 2026. So you have plenty of time if you are graduating in June or July, for example.
And someone just said that they were applying from Italy, and they were saying, so are you saying that nobody from Italy can apply in the second round? No, absolutely you can apply in the second round. The deadline is earlier in June for those who are not EU citizens, and then it's 5th of July for those who are EU citizens, which should allow you to receive your results in time, because it's been chosen as a date which hopefully works for the vast majority of EU countries. Doesn't work for everywhere, but it works for most places. So hopefully that's okay for you.
Exactly. A lot of other types of questions have come up here, and I think one thing I saw it earlier in the posts here was about English requirements.
Yes, I noticed that too. Yeah.
So if somebody is applying, they will obviously need proof of English language proficiency. This is something that everyone applying to an international program in Sweden and at Lund needs to prove that they have the right level. Then there are different ways in which you can actually show that you have the required level. Most of our programs require something called English 6. That is not the same thing as IELTS 6. English 6 is a different concept that you can show through different methods. Some of you may be able to show it through previous studies, in which case your transcript or your diploma might suffice, and some of you and most of you would need to show it in other ways, for example, through an internationally recognized test such as IELTS or TOEFL or other tests that you can find on universityadmissions.se. That's where they have all the information about how to prove your English.
Maybe we can share that link actually to the English
we can share that link. One very important point I want to make about this is that, two important points actually. One, don't assume that because you've studied in English, you don't need any other proof. That is not the case. You have to check these rules very carefully, because when we say some of you can prove it, we really mean that. It doesn't mean that, but I studied in English, so I'm fine, my transcript will do. That's not necessarily so. So please check that it applies to you. And the other important thing I want to say is that the deadline to prove that you meet the English requirements is the same deadline as the document deadline. So it's so common every year that we have students applying, submitting their transcript, their statement of purpose, everything, and then they send us an email and say, I'm taking my IELTS in April. Yeah. That's fine, right?
It's kind of heartbreaking, actually.
No, it's not. So please plan ahead, and that's why we're having this live now, so that you can already book your test, for example, or prepare your documents. Anything else I missed there regarding English?
I think as we mentioned, that universityadmissions.se is a really useful website, and they have all of that information there. So those who are asking, do you accept this test? Go there, have a look and see what we accept, because we follow the rules that are laid down on that website.
Exactly.
And also similarly, for those of you who are wondering what applies to you based on your previous years of schooling, you can also check, and it's a really, really important tip, to check on the country guidance pages, because those country guidance pages not only tell you whether or not you can prove English through your previous studies from that country, but they also tell you what we require from you as a general eligibility requirement for any studies in Sweden. So we talked already a little bit about how to apply and, you know, where to apply, but I think now we're going to get on to this topic of like, what do you actually need in terms of your documents and things? And the first place to look is probably that country guidance page to see like, what do I need to actually submit? It gives guidance there on, for example, do I need a full bachelor's, or do I need a bachelor's plus a 1 year of study, depending on what country I'm applying from. It tells you, do I need translations, do I need stamps, you know, everything that you could want to know about what kinds of documents you need to submit from your previous studies is on that country guidance page.
And as Rebecca's saying, I mean, make sure that you look, there's a general instruction, like, oh, you need this and you need to submit this document, and that's for like everyone in the whole world. But then there is country specific rules as well, and these are of course for the country in which you studied your degree that you're using in your application. So it doesn't really matter. We know that, you know, people move around, and maybe you're from a certain country but you're studying in another country and you're living in a third country. You have to think about, where are my documents from, and where's my degree from. Maybe you studied in a British school system, but you're living in Malaysia and you're actually from, I don't know, some India. Then of course you have to look at the UK rules because you're studying in a British system. So you have to really think about, where are my documents coming from, and then read the instructions for those kind of documents. And if those in any way contradict sort of the generic rules, then the country rules override that. So they are the most important ones for you to check. And that's the first thing you should do, really. Am I even eligible for studies in Sweden?
Yeah, exactly, because these are the rules that pretty much all of the other universities also follow. And then once you've checked that you meet the general eligibility and that you can prove your English, then the third area of eligibility is the program-specific eligibility. So maybe we should quickly
get into that as well. Yeah, because as we were saying now, we have the country rules that tell you what kind of degree you must have in order to apply to a master's, for example, or a bachelor's. And we have rules regarding English, as we talked about, and how to submit proof, etc. But then those are the general rules to study in Sweden, or to study a program at that level in Sweden. But then each program has their specific requirements. A few programs, the interdisciplinary programs in particular, might just state, for example, there's a master's that just states you need a bachelor degree and proof of English, and that's it. While most of the masters have very specific, you need a bachelor degree in this subject with this many credits in that particular topic. So make sure to check on the program page the specific eligibility requirements as well, to make sure that you fulfill that. And it's up to you as an applicant to prove that you actually have what it takes to study that program. And if you don't think that that's super clear on your transcript, you can always write in the statement of purpose, for example, or in any of the other program-specific documents they might require that, and explain a little bit more that, I actually have these credits because we worked on that within this particular subject.
Sometimes it's helpful to include the curriculum from that particular course. If it isn't obvious that the course, from the course name, that it covers the topic that the program is asking for, then you can provide a bit more detail so that they can actually evaluate that, yes, that course does cover the topics that they've specified, which is really helpful. Similarly, for those who are applying in your final year, you can also write a list of courses that you're intending to study if you're relying on any of those to meet that program-specific requirements. So you can also provide, for example, the curriculum or the planned learning that you're going to be doing, and that's often okay.
Exactly. We have some questions here more about sort of the level of things, like your the grades you might need, or
like GPA
somebody
and,
found exactly, and somebody found here on the School of Economics and Management as well that they had mentioned GMAT and GRE scores. So what does it actually take, Becca, to get into the program?
This is
It's one thing to be eligible, it's another thing to be selected.
Well, in terms of how programs select and what they are looking at, obviously this does vary program to program. At bachelor's level, we can just blanket say that everything is based on your high school grades. So that's simple. There's nothing else to think about there. It's just basically your grades average from your high school. And then at master's level, obviously that will play a part, of course, but there will also be other things that they might be looking at. For example, some programs where they're asking for example, a statement of purpose or a CV, may be thinking about your qualities in terms of previous work experience or other elements, not only your academic skills. Whereas some programs might just simply say that they are basically giving you points based on your previous academics and what subjects you've previously studied according to their eligibility criteria. So it is different depending on the program as to what they require. But it is a very unique thing in Sweden, I think, because it's not really... We don't have on those pages, you'll have noticed, a thing that says you need to have A grades or you need to have this.
Exactly.
And there's a reason for that, because that's not how it works with our application system. We don't have a specific GPA or a specific grade that you need to have in order to receive a place. What happens is everybody who is judged eligible based on those criteria that are written there and what we already talked about with the general eligibility will get a merit score based on the selection criteria. And then the people with the highest merit score will then be offered a place, essentially. So that is why we can't usually give a guide as to what the GPA is or what the cutoff is, because every year it's different depending on who applies and what their grades were. And also every year different numbers of students apply and things might change a little bit in terms of how the program actually does their assessment. So it's really, really impossible for us to tell you about grade point cutoffs, really.
Sure.
But it's much more important to make sure that you're eligible. That's way more important, because otherwise you will get essentially out of the race before you get a chance to get a merit score and compete with the other students.
Exactly. Doing everything right and on time is actually the winning concept here, because we do see a lot of applicants that just fall away long before they even get to selection, as Rebecca was saying here. Maybe they submitted a document too late or incorrectly, and then the applications never even reach us, because we have this national process where some of the criteria are checked, and like the documents are correct, that they came in on time, that you have the right type of degree, that you have the right level of English. That's already checked before we even sort of look at the documents. So a lot of students just never get even past that point. So your goal should just be to do your very best, make sure that you get everything in correctly and on time, and then we can evaluate that.
And it's a similar, maybe I just mention that I saw a couple of questions about acceptance rate, but it's a very similar story for that too, because obviously every year that boundary will change. So we can't really say, and every year the different number of students will apply, and every year a different number of students will be eligible. So it really varies every year. So we can't really give, and every program is so different as well. So some programs are really, really popular and extremely competitive. Others maybe a little bit more niche, so the competition pool is a bit more niche. So that can affect the acceptance rate quite drastically. But it's again really important that you're eligible in order to compete. So
and that's especially, I would say, for bachelor level studies, that's probably one of the main issues, that students don't even they don't even meet the eligibility requirements. And we can say also that I don't think we mentioned that, but we have well over 130 international master's programs, but we only have 10 international bachelor programs that are completely taught in English. Obviously, we have many more bachelor programs, but they are in Swedish. So the competition for these 10 is quite steep, and Some of them are very, very specialized, like we have arts and music, for example. Obviously, that's to a very specific niche audience. So the big generic bachelor programs, so generic, more generic, like international business or development studies or economy and society, which are quite broad topics, they receive a lot of applications. So there, the competition is really, really tough. And as we talked about earlier, they open in both the international application round and in the second sort of more Swedish EU round. So half of the seats are allocated to the respective rounds as well. So that could be good to know, because we do have quite a few bachelor questions in here. So I just wanted to mention that.
I've just shared a page which may be useful for those, because there was quite a lot of questions about how to convert to the ECTS system.
Yes.
So there's a page where our engineering department have helpfully shared a formula that they accept. Maybe that's a good guide. So feel free to use that.
But in most cases, unless they specifically ask for that on the statement of purpose or the summary sheet, kind of program specific documents, you don't have to do any calculation or sort of translate your grading system. As long as we can see what your grading system is, which is usually stated on the transcript, we will sort of do the conversion and figure it out. So you don't have to worry about it. But if you want to do it in order to check, am I eligible? That's wise, of course. So for that reason, then that could be a good tool to use. Right. So many questions. I'm kind of.
I noticed a couple of questions about transfers we could quickly mention. So a couple of students were asking on here, I'm in my third year, I would like to transfer to Lund University, for example. Just to be really brief and clear about this, it's very rare that somebody can transfer to anything in Sweden. In fact, we don't actually have that really as a thing. Instead, what you can do is apply for a program just like everybody else. And then once you're accepted, at that point, you can have a conversation with the program about whether or not any of your previous credits can be counted towards that program and therefore shorten your program, which obviously is not really the same as like a normal transfer situation. And that's because the way that it works in Sweden is that you have to have studied exactly the same content in order to have that transfer approved. So it is technically possible to have some credits from your previous studies approved towards your current degree in Sweden, but you have to first get accepted to that degree and then have that conversation. So I could just briefly mention that.
I tried to scroll back here and I see that there are still quite a few questions regarding English and the English proficiency required, and if you can get an exception from this or that, if you've studied in English, or if you can submit a test later. I think somebody wrote here that they had booked a test after February. So just to clarify that again, if you go to universityadmissions.se, there is a page about the English requirements. And there they have basically divided the information in 3 sections. One is about upper secondary studies. So those of you who have studied upper secondary school or high school completely in English in an English-speaking country, in some cases you can use those transcripts as proof of English. So even if you're applying to a master's, you could submit your upper secondary school documents to prove English only, even though you don't need them for your application otherwise, but just to prove English. So some of you can use that. Then there is one page where there's information about previous university studies. So for example, if you're applying to a master's and you have a bachelor degree that was taught in English, in an English-speaking country, etc., you can check there to see, is that something I can use to prove that I meet the requirements? And finally, the third page is all about the English proficiency tests that we accept, what type of test, and also the score level that you need in order to meet the requirements. So if you go through everything there, that is your answer. You should be able to find the answer, And if in doubt at all, if you're like, oh, I'm not sure I meet this requirement, do I really have 60 credits of English from this country? If you're not sure, take a test. That's always the safest bet if you're not really sure. Another thing you can do, if you're not sure but you really don't want to take a test, apply early. apply immediately when we open in mid-October, submit everything, and maybe there is a chance that your application for the general entry requirements will get processed in time. So for example, if you submit them in October, maybe a couple of months in if you already meet the English requirements, and then you don't have to go take the test. But I would recommend at least having booked a test if you're unsure, so that you have that option later on if you should need it. And as for the person asking if they could do it in February, no, not if you're applying in this round.
Not even if you have the test before but the results after.
No,
even then you still need the results
by
before.
early February. Yeah.
Somebody here said it doesn't say about the IB course taken entirely in English in Spain. Well, actually it does, because IB, the page about IB applies to any IB taken anywhere in any language. It's usually in English. Just read the page about IB and you will find that information there. I believe that it specifies exactly what you need to take in terms of English. It's like English SL or English HL. Sorry, I don't know which one, but just check on that page.
Yeah, exactly. So if there's something you feel that you can't find on the page about English requirements and it's related to your upper secondary school studies, go to the country page. And IB is actually listed as a country, even though it's not a country, because there are so many people who have IB studies.
We have a couple of questions of, is there a fee to pay with their application, which is a good question. Yes, there is.
If you're non-EU.
If you're non-EU, yes. So if you're an EU citizen, and by that we mean if you have a passport essentially, that shows that you're an EU national, then you can just upload that document and that will prove that you're an EU national, and then you will not have to pay a fee. You may still see a reminder about paying the fee, because until they've processed your document, they might not know that you're an EU citizen. But up until that point, you'll still see a reminder. But as long as you've uploaded proof of your EU nationality, you don't need to pay a fee. However, if you are a non-EU citizen, then you do have to pay a fee, and I believe that's 900 krona. Is that right?
Yeah.
My brain was like, I say this many times, but I suddenly forgot. So 900 Swedish krona is the fee, and that is actually set on like a national level. It's not to us, it's just set by Sweden in general.
Exactly. And please note that this is a processing fee. So what I mean by that is that they will not look at your application. They will not do anything with your application before that is either paid or you've proven that you are exempt from paying. Because a lot of students kind of submit all the documents and then think, I'll just pay at the last minute. But that's not wise, because then nothing will happen and you won't be able to get any feedback on your application. So if it turns out later there was a mistake or a problem to correct, then maybe it's too late. So we do advise everybody to submit at least the sort of official documents as early as possible. Even though the deadline is early February, submit them in October, submit them in November, and pay the fee so that the processing can start. And that way you can find out if something is wrong or missing and you still have time to fix it. We do see a lot of students applying very late. And that means that we won't have time to process the application until after 1st of February and later on. And by then, there's no time to fix anything. Your application must be complete and correct by that deadline. So
Exactly. And that actually links to another question I saw, which was, if I apply early, do I have a higher chance of entry, which we could maybe cover? Yes. In that way, yes. So basically, if you've managed to, fix an error, then obviously it's helpful for your chance of entry, because if you haven't managed to fix an error, you could get disqualified essentially from the process. So it is helpful to apply early. However, it isn't first come, first served.
No.
So basically, everybody who is eligible will be given a merit score. Those who have that merit score will then be ranked according to that, and then the people who have the most the highest merit score, which is based on what the programs consider as their selection criteria, will then receive an offer. So you don't have to worry about, I must apply on the 15th of October. Take your time over the any documents that you need to prepare. We just ask you to have that balance of like, take your time, but try not to do it last minute is pretty much our approach.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people tend to wait until they have all the documents ready. You've written your perfect statement of purpose and now you're ready, but you don't have to wait. You can submit the transcripts, your proof of English, all sort of the official documents, and then you can spend time working on the program specific documents, and you can rewrite your statement of purpose 10 times before you submit it at the end of January. So don't feel that you have to do it all in one go. Since most of you can upload documents, it's very simple to just upload the transcripts if that is okay according to the country rules for your country. So that can be done quite easily.
And two related things to that which have been asked about. One is that you will still get your results on the results day. You don't get an early result. So for master's applicants, that's going to be one date, and for bachelors it's going to be another, but it's basically going to be March, April time.
Exactly.
So that's when you will get your results. And also another question that I think was related to that was, if I delete documents and then upload them again, this kind of thing, like will the admissions team see? Well, actually you can't delete the documents. Once you upload something, it's kind of it's saved forever there. So that's another reason why maybe you should think carefully about your documents before you upload them, just so that you don't upload 20 of the same thing because you've made a small edit.
But if you do realize you've made a mistake, you can easily upload something again.
And we're quite used to that, aren't we? So the admission staff will always just check the latest one, and they're not going to go through it with a fine tooth comb and be like, oh, she's changed that. So don't worry. But you can just maybe make an edit to the title or something so that you understand, like, this is my final one, for example. But so it isn't possible to make edits to your documents after the document deadline either. So you have to just make sure that you've put everything up that is required before the document deadline.
Speaking of deadlines, there's somebody asking here, applying to a bachelor's, which round they should apply in. And I just want to clarify again that we highly encourage everybody who is ready, certainly every international applicant who is ready, whether you're EU or non-EU, to apply in the early round if you can, if you are ready, if you have already completed your upper secondary school. If you are still in upper secondary school and you are an EU citizen, you can apply in the second round. But there's no reason to wait. It's not like we encourage EU students to apply in the later round if they don't need to. It's only if you're still completing that. So just to clarify that, because I saw somebody here, I'm going to apply in the second round. Well, if you're ready, if you finished high school, then don't wait. I just want to say I love this question. There was a question here. Where did it go? Will there be a live about making the best master's application? I love that. In a way, yes, we will have several events like this one. We will have more lives. We will have more webinars and Q&A sessions. And how do you make the best master's application?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think also that we may have already shared the previous session we did on common mistakes.
Exactly.
Which is also helpful because actually one of the best ways to make a good application is not to make those common mistakes. But I mean, it obviously does depend quite a lot on the program, doesn't it? Because it will depend what they are looking for as to how you should then tailor your application. And as we've said many, many times now, a huge part of this is about eligibility and making sure that you submit the right documents correctly, and that will put you in as good a position as you can be. When it comes to the programs that require you to submit a statement of purpose, which I saw people asking about, that's another word for a personal statement or a letter, letter of intent, or
letter,
people use it kind of interchangeably, but essentially, if the program asks for that, then my top tip is to be as specific as possible about exactly what it is about this particular program, not just those kinds of programs in general, not just Sweden in general, like specifically what about this program is appealing to you, because the job of the staff is to check that their program is a good fit for you and that you're a good fit for their program. So the more clear you are on what the program is and what it's going to give you and how it's going to benefit you and your motivation for that particular program, the higher the chance that appeals to the program, if that makes sense. So that's always the advice I give, is to be really specific.
And also many of the programs actually have a template with specific questions you need to answer, so they kind of guide you in that way. And I know that the School of Economics and Management, for example, as many people are applying to their programs, they used to have a webinar about how to write a statement of purpose. I think that it's still recorded and available somewhere, and they also have some instructions for it. So that could be something to check out if you're applying to any of their programs. I think it's just generally good advice in there as well, even if you're applying to another type of program. There was something else I was thinking of. Yes, so we haven't talked at all about funding.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe that is a good time. Yeah,
I saw there were some questions about scholarships, and since this live is all about preparing to apply, one of the most important things after you've done your research, you're interested in Lund and Sweden, you maybe have already found the program, you've checked that you're eligible. But another really important thing to do at that stage is to think about your funding. So whether you're EU or non-EU, what is your plan?
Yeah.
How are you going to sustain yourself throughout your studies here at Lund? Living costs, housing, food, and also tuition fees if you're non-EU. And it's really important to plan ahead because, again, speaking of common mistakes, one thing we really see every year in the hundreds, I would say, are students who are focusing on their application and they are super excited and they get accepted to Lund, and then they realize, how am I going to make this work? Or maybe they applied to one scholarship and they didn't receive it, and now what?
Yeah.
They don't have a backup plan. So that is something we strongly encourage you to start really making a plan and a backup plan and a backup plan to the backup plan.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are some tips you can give there, Rebecca?
Well, I mean, I would definitely recommend everybody to check out our scholarship, which is the Lund University Global Scholarship, because that is applicable to every nationality, and also apart from one or two of the bachelor's programs. So please do check that out, because that's a tuition fee discount scholarship that offers a discount on your tuition fee, which obviously can be very helpful for students. However, it is really competitive, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really just one or two students per program normally that receive that, if even that.
Yeah.
So don't count on it. As Maria said, it's really important to basically not put all your eggs in one basket, as we would say. So make sure that you think about all of the options that you can find. For some students, one option that's really great is the Swedish Institute Scholarship, because they cover also living costs, which is obviously really cool. And we are well represented in recipients for the Swedish Institute Scholarship. So we would encourage anybody who is eligible for that to look into it and see if they could apply for that. And obviously you can also look at local scholarships, other scholarship organisations near you, maybe companies or government scholarships, or other options essentially in terms of funding. And as you said, you should have a plan, you should have a backup plan, then you should hopefully have another backup plan, because it is really rare for students to receive these very highly coveted scholarships. So it's important to think about it, really, is all you can do. I mean, obviously, it can work out great, it can not work out, but if you've tried your best to plan and to think of the options, then it's more likely that you will have success and have a good option.
I think maybe we had a little bit of internet issues here, or maybe it's just lagging for us here a little bit. But if we missed any of your questions, don't worry. You can always submit questions in our form that is linked here in the description of the video. So if you either didn't hear the answer or we didn't get to your question, please feel free to send us questions afterwards and we will take care of them. So just wanted to mention that, since we have people also going in and out a little bit. So again, there is a form linked in the description where you can send more questions if we missed yours.
And yeah, we just have to maybe notify you all that we have a bit less than 10 minutes left on our presentation here today. So just so you know, it's a good time now if you have any final questions for us to try and answer. Obviously, we won't be able to get to everybody's questions. So as we've said many times, please feel free to follow up with us through our form if needed. I noticed a scholarship-related question here, which is when should I apply for the scholarship?
Good question.
Would you like to?
Yeah, so I mean, for now, we really want you to prepare your application for studies, and as Rebecca explained, start researching your funding options. But then the most important thing is to make a complete and correct application for studies on time. So you have the entire winter, basically. We open mid-October, we close mid-January, and then have the document deadline early February. So once you've done that and everything is in, everything is correct, everything is done in time, you can kind of relax from that part, and that's when we open our scholarship application for the Lund University Global Scholarship. So that one usually opens early February and is open for about 10 days or 2 weeks or so, and that's when you have a chance to apply to that. So it's a separate application that you do later on. Don't worry, we will send all of you a link to that once you have made your application to a program at Lund University as your main choice, and you are a non-EU citizen. We will be sending you the link as well, and of course it's going to be on our website also, so that you won't miss that.
Yes, exactly. We have a couple of questions here about the course selection in terms of priority selection. Maybe we could quickly have a little bit of info on that, because I think somebody asked, are your chances of being accepted to a master's program better if I apply to multiple programs?
No. but also not necessarily
not
worse. No. It depends on the order. So we mentioned this quite early in this live, but if somebody just came in now, we can repeat that, I think, because it's so important. So in Sweden, we have a national application system. So all students from around the world, no matter where they are, who they are, they need to apply on the website universityadmissions.se. So that's where you apply to any bachelor or master studies in the whole country of Sweden. And when you do that, if you apply to a master's, you can add and select up to 4 master's programs. And if you apply to a bachelor's, you can select up to 8 bachelor programs in the same application. So it's basically like online shopping. You go in the list and, I like this one, I like that one, and then you just add your programs. However, it is extremely important to place these programs in your order of preference, because you can only get one offer from all of Sweden, and they will be sort of considered in that order that you place them in your application. So the program that you have as number 1 in your list should absolutely be the program you're most hoping to get into. You really, really, really want to get into that program in that university. It doesn't matter if you have a mix of universities and types of programs, but the number 1 should really be the one. And the rest of the programs are really just a backup. So if you are not accepted to the first one, then we will consider the second one and see, are you eligible for that? Could you be selected for that? They do all this at the same time, but you will see it as kind of an order. Yeah. And this is super important, because we have students asking things like, but I want to come to Lund now, but it was my third choice, or I didn't get a scholarship, but it was, but of course you need to place it as your first choice so that we have a chance to actually admit you, and that you also show that this is the program you really want. So that is really important to place it in the right order there.
Yeah, and there's a question here. If I know exactly what I want to do, would you recommend still to have backup programs because I just want to study physics? Well, I mean, it's no harm. It's really no harm to have backup programs.
So we have a mix. We have students who just feel like, I need to fill 4 because I can. And we have other students who are like, this is the only one I want.
And I just applied to one, for example, because that was the only program that I was interested in. So that's fine. Like if that's the case, if you'd rather not study than study something that you don't really, you're not really interested in, then that's obviously better. But if there's something that you would consider and you think you would still enjoy, but it's just not necessarily your top choice, then that's also totally valid. I mean, there are probably many situations like that where there's a course that's quite similar or quite,
And also
Yeah.
the program managers during the selection, they will understand that you have a backup plan of similar programs. Of course, if you're just throwing in a random collection of programs that have nothing in common, then people might be like, does this person know what they want? But as Rebecca said, there's no harm in general in having a backup.
You can, for example, apply to us for physics, and you could also apply to a physics program elsewhere if you really wish to.
Or another specialization. I think we have like 7 or 8 specializations in physics, so there are quite a few options there. Yeah, we're running 2 minutes to go, basically. So let's...
Maybe we should just mention that there are other places where you can find information. Obviously, we have the form that we've mentioned where you can ask a question. We also have a very handy FAQ guide, which goes through actually almost everything that we've just discussed about the sort of basics of applying. So if you've missed something, or if you have a question that we haven't answered, I would actually suggest maybe starting there with the FAQ and just confirming that information before asking a question potentially, because it might be in the FAQ. It's quite likely. There's also going to be upcoming future events you may have seen at the start. I think was it 14th of October, the next one, or 13th? Yeah. Anyway, very
find them all on our website.
Yeah, find them on our website. We also
travel actually to some countries, so depending on where you are, you might be able to meet some of us in person.
Yeah, so essentially there's lots of options for where to get information and how to meet us and talk to us, and we are really here to help, so please do feel free to use one of those resources.
Yeah, and I would say that our website is really comprehensive. I mean, if you follow sort of the structure, you don't even have to search. You could just basically follow the structure. If you go to lunduniversity.lu.se, you go to admissions, and then you go to bachelors and masters, and under there you'll find all the programs with the program descriptions, but also how to apply. And then it's pretty much just like move one page down,
one
and
step
you can see the whole one, kind of step-by-step process of applying, documentation, English, all of these things that we've talked about today are available there, and it is up to date and it's reliable. So there's a lot you could just read, and as Becca said, we also have the frequently asked questions page to summarize everything. Yeah, I think we're getting towards the end again. If we didn't get to your question, please use the link in the description to submit your question to us, and we will answer via email instead. And
hopefully we answered quite a lot of your questions. I think we did. And thank you very much for attending today.
Thank you for joining us live today, and we hope to see you soon again.